give thanks this morning that we are able to come into your presence. The God of all the earth, the Creator God, the one who dwells in holiness, and we come as sinners to your footstool today, acknowledging that that is what we are. And we bless you, O Lord, that we have a mediator between us and thee, the Lord and Saviour Jesus Christ, the one who came into the world to seek and to save that which was lost. And we bless you, O Lord, this morning anew for your goodness to us and your provision for us, not only spiritually but materially. And we ask, O Lord, as we gather here this morning, that you would be with us and lead us and guide us, be with the chair here and be with the officers, those particularly who oversee the financial duties of the Comhairle. We ask that you would be with them in sometimes very difficult situations. And we thank you, O Lord, for the work, the diligent work that goes on. And we ask that you would be with them and their families, be with all who are employed by the Comhairle here. We remember them all and ask that you would be with them, and those that are often sick, that you would restore to health and strength. Remember especially those that are in stressful situations, that you would lead them and guide them yourself, that we would be enabled to look to you as the God of all hope, the God of all strength. We ask those, particularly in our communities, who are going through difficult times in these days, that you would be with them, particularly those who have problems with their health. We commit them to you and ask, O God, that you would be with us as a community, that you would lead us, that you would guide us, and that you would keep us. Be with all of our families. Again, we commit them to you, near and far. We particularly remember our aged and our young and our middle-aged. We commit them all to you. And we would ask that you would be with us, lead us, guide us, and keep us. And we ask all for Jesus' sake. Amen.
Thank you, Councillor MacLean. Just a reminder, the meeting is now being recorded. And could I also extend a warm welcome to Mr. Martin Joyce, our new Chief Executive, to his first meeting of the Audit and Scrutiny Committee. Welcome, Martin. Thank you. You're all familiar with the code of conduct of the meeting, so I won't need to remind you of that going forward. Now, I'm ruling item 18 as urgent to allow matters to be considered before the next meeting of the committee. And with the committee's approval, I would also like to take item 18 at the beginning of the meeting after our declarations of interest, as we have Claire Gardner from Audit Scotland present to present her Audit Scotland report as well. So the first item is the minute of the meeting of 25th March 2026, and that's for approval. Agreed. Thank you. We've now got declaration of interest. Item 2, members are asked to declare any interest they have in any items on the agenda, and to be helpful if members expressed why they're declaring interest in the item concerned if they have a declaration. Members in the chamber, please do so now by pressing your microphone on or remotely through Teams by using the raise hand function. I'm not seeing any in the chamber, and I'm not seeing any hands, so I take it there are no declarations of interest at this point. Okay. Well, Callum, can you put your mic off at the moment? Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so we'll take item 18, external audit. It's the annual accounts for 24-25. This report is by the Chief Financial Officer, and we've got the report by Audit Scotland for 24-25 also. Both these reports are going to be taken together, and I'm going to hand over to Claire Gardner from Audit Scotland first, who will take us through the annual audit report from Audit Scotland. Then I will bring in Mr. Sandy Gomez, Chief Financial Officer at the Comhairle, to take us through the audit annual accounts for 24-25. So welcome, Claire, and good morning. Hope you can hear us okay.
Morning, I can hear you fine, thank you. And sorry I can't be there today.
I think you're on mute, Claire.
Oh, no, I'll try again. Can you hear me now?
We're going to leave the meeting at the moment and rejoin just so we can get you back on, Claire. Just give us a couple of seconds.
We can hear you, Claire, but it's cut in the meeting.
We can hear you, Claire, very well.
Good morning, Councillor Hossein. Glad you're with us.
We can hear Claire very well.
Yeah.
Online.
Yeah, we're not hearing Claire in the chamber, so that's a problem.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, Claire, yes, good morning, thank you.
Right, thank you. Okay, thank you for that, Chair, and sorry I can't be there in person today. I just had a conflict. So hopefully this is a positive report. I'll start with the audit opinion because that is really the key headline this year. So last year we issued a disclaimer of opinion due to the cyber attack as we couldn't obtain sufficient evidence across the accounts. This year we've been able to move to a modified opinion or a qualified opinion in older terms. This is a significant step forward. So what that means is we now have sufficient assurance over the 24-25 in-year financial information, which we have concluded is free from material misstatement. The qualification that remains is specifically in respect of the 23-24 comparatives, and these continue to be impacted by the loss of evidence following the cyber attack. So overall, we've moved on from no assurance last year to partial assurance this year. And importantly, the issue is historic rather than on the current information. So this outcome is entirely consistent with the risks we highlighted in the audit plan. In particular, we identified a significant risk around the prior year financial information, including opening balances and comparative figures, and that risk has materialised in the form of the qualification in the accounts. If you look at Exhibit 5, we also identified a number of other issues. So unusually, we flagged a heightened risk over revenue and expenditure due to the control environment in the current year. And our response to this was to increase substantive testing. Reassuringly, we did not identify any material misstatements in those years. So in terms of the accounts themselves, we concluded that the current financial figures are sound. There was one significant adjustment in relation to teachers' early retirement liability, which increased materially following updated data, but otherwise no issues that changed the overall position. All adjusted errors are reported in Appendix 2, and there are also 2 unadjusted errors which we report in Appendix 3. These are below materiality and they specifically relate to 23-24 balances which are brought forward to the current year. Unfortunately, we were still unable to get evidence to support the transactions as the evidence was lost as a result of the cyber attack. In audit terms, we regard these as errors, but in reality, they're simply areas where there is insufficient evidence to support the figures. Another key part of the story this year was the control environment. So in Exhibit 8, we have showed the path back to recovery over 24-25, which was very much a year of system re-implementation. The core systems came back online at different points throughout the year. So for a large part of the year, the Comhairle was operating with manual processes and interim arrangements in place. And in that context, I think it would genuinely have been a miracle if everything had been operating perfectly from year one. So Exhibit 5 sets out the control issues we identified with that. For example, we've highlighted segregation of duties, reconciliations and access controls. And these are exactly the kind of issues you would expect to see in a recovery year. We've reported them because they applied during 24-25, but our expectation is that many of these issues had already been addressed by the year end and they may not impact 25-26 to the full extent. I'll quickly turn to wider scope. Overall, we have concluded that the Comhairle has generally appropriate arrangements in place across financial management, governance and use of resources. And there are some clear positives highlighted in the report, noting that financial management has improved during the year with services delivered within budget and systems largely being restored. And governance arrangements are operating as intended. However, we have noted some ongoing challenges, particularly over financial sustainability, which remains a key risk. We note that the Comhairle is managing it in the short term through savings and reserves, but it's not sustainable over the medium term. And our best value work on transformation picked up a bit on that as well. There's also work to do to fully embed controls and strengthen reporting at corporate level and recovering from the cyber attack, particularly around IT resilience and risk management. Our best value overall conclusion is again positive if arrangements are effective and appropriate. We have highlighted the results of our thematic review on transformation, and we've noted that transformation plans are still at an early stage and the Comhairle needs to continue developing how it delivers and reports on improvement. Just before I finish, just like to emphasise that it's not been an easy audit. I think we've regarded this as one of our more challenging audits of our careers for most of us. It's taken a lot of effort on both sides and there was a lot of additional work. So I really would like to thank the finance team for pulling the accounts together in a timely fashion and for putting up with us over the last few months. I'm happy to take any questions on that.
Thank you, Claire, and thank you very much for this positive report and for all the work that you as a team have put in as well. So very much appreciated. Before I open up for questions to you, I'll ask our Chief Internal Auditor now to come in, our Chief Internal Financial Controller rather, to come in on his report.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, just to say we're very glad to see this report, very glad to see the 24-25 accounts finally getting over the line. Claire's right, we are a bit sick of the sight of auditors, but we are very, very glad for their work. It's positive to see that there was a lot of additional testing on the 24-25 accounts as we would expected following the 23-24 ones. This put quite a lot of pressure on our teams, particularly as we start to produce the 25-26 accounts. So yeah, we're very glad to see it. So any changes in the accounts have largely come from changes identified throughout the audit. We're happy with the recommendations. As Claire has already said, a lot of them have already been addressed through the course of 25-26. So yeah, happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Gomez. Members, any questions for either our external audit, internal audit? Councillor Gordon Murray.
Thank you, Chair. I've got a few questions. I wanted to ask about the comparative data for the 23-24. It remains unauditable. What specific records are missing, and when will the Comhairle achieve a clean opinion? That's my first question.
I'll ask Mr. Gomez possibly to come in with that one. Mr. Gomez.
Well, on the 23-24 accounts, there is documentation that is missing as it was lost in the cyber attack. It seems unlikely we'll get a lot of that data back, so it's a case of rebuilding what we have from knowledge we have or some historic documents that we're able to reproduce. With regards to the opinion, I'll maybe ask Claire to come in on that one. It's certainly my intention that going into 25-26 that we can move towards a cleaner opinion. We've already moved from the disclaimer of opinion to a modified opinion. We're taking those steps to get towards a clean opinion. I would hope that either in 25-26 or 26-27 we're back to being on an even keel of being a clean accounts like we always have been in the past. I mean, this is the only time I think in certainly my memory and my predecessor's memory where we had disclaimer of opinion on the account. So we're keen to get back to that as soon as possible.
Do one of you like to understand the Councillor Murray might have other questions as well. Claire, do you want to come in on Councillor Murray's question as well? Do you want to follow up?
Yeah. I wouldn't like to guarantee anything, but I think it is really positive that we've got assurance this year over the 24-25 figures, and provided there are no issues next year, it does put us on course for having an unqualified opinion next year. We won't go back and audit the 23-24 figures, but we're satisfied that there isn't anything materially incorrect being brought forward into the current year figures. So that does put us on a course for an unqualified opinion. Hopefully that provides assurance.
Thank you, Claire. Councillor Murray.
Second question is, I see that the auditor identified significant deficiencies in segregation of duties, reconciliations and access controls, which I think she briefly mentioned. So I would ask, which specific controls remain weak and what is the risk rating?
Claire, I think that's over to you.
Yeah, as I said, I don't have the details of the specific controls. It was mainly to do with authorisations and segregation of duties over performing reconciliations, etc. Our understanding is that in 25-26, the control weaknesses that we identified had been resolved already. We obviously haven't audited that yet. So as part of next year's audit, we will be auditing that, and hopefully it will be a much more positive picture.
One of the concerns that jumped out, I think, was how the liability estimate was so outdated that we needed a 6.1 million adjustment. What assurance processes failed in that, and are there any other major estimates that carry similar risks of material adjustment? Because 6.1 million is quite a substantial adjustment.
I'll ask Mr. Gomez to come in and answer that one. Dan, can I-
Yes, in relation to this one, this is based on some records that we had from a number of years ago in order to estimate what the pension liability in relation to teachers is. A lot of this is based on potential, what the life expectancy is, but it also relates partly to a number of teachers going back 30 plus years, even longer, who have positively lived a lot longer than expected and therefore are still claiming from this. So it was a case of reviewing all that data. Now, obviously, post cyber attack, there was a lot of other priorities which came to the fore in order for us to put at the front, and this was just one of them that was identified during the audit. So during that time, we reviewed all the data, updated the life expectancies, and changed a lot of the figures. So although it does look like a big jump, it is just it's not something that has an immediate effect on us. It's more just a figure in the balance sheet that we have had to adjust for these updated records.
Thank you. Nobody lives longer than expected, Mr. Gomez. It's a point of time for us all.
Yeah, Chair, I was going to just the second part of that question was, are there any other estimates that are under the same kind of risk of such an adjustment?
Not that we're aware of at the moment, and as we go into 25, 26, it's likely that maybe something else might come to light during an audit, but we'll be reviewing all estimates of similar types, certainly as well. Since we've updated these ones relating to the pensions, we'll look at all the other estimates we have and update records as we're going, just as a normal part of the process.
And my final question, you'll be glad to know, is on the financial sustainability part, with regards to the transformational projects, which I think everyone agrees they're critical given our financial outlook. So it states that at early stages, the transformational projects. So when do we think quantified savings will be built into the medium-term financial planning? And what percentage of that gap, which was quoted, I think was between 15.9 million and 26.5 million, would they cover the transformational projects? Thanks.
Thanks, Chair. This is probably more a question for those on the transformation teams. I think these have been brought to committees in the past. It is a case of working through a lot of these projects. They were at early stages, as you mentioned. The auditors identified that as well. At the moment, we're looking at quantifying what the efficiencies are in staff time. But with regards to actually putting actual numbers on figures for longer term efficiencies, that'll be for the project teams to identify and bring forward reports to committees of both this committee and policy and resources in regards to the transformation projects. I don't have any further information on that at the moment.
And maybe feed that back through PNR later. Dave?
Chair, I think there's a transformational report coming up, which we could maybe discuss.
Maybe that
later on.
Okay, thank you. All your questions on the accounts, Councillor.
Thanks.
Anyone else got any questions? Colin McLean?
Yeah, it's going on from one of the questions that Mr. Murray said was over the weakness in control environment that Claire said that she has got no specific details on. But they also mentioned that you found that the oversight was spread too long. Could you give us details on what you mean by the oversight was spread?
Claire, come in.
Sorry, could you tell me what part of the report that was from?
Well, it's probably under, it would be, I think it's number 8, if I've got it right. You talk about your 4 and is your, got it.
I think I found it. Is it in relation to the performance, performance oversight?
I
That's
think
right.
it's on page 4, Claire.
Yeah.
It's item 8 on page 4.
That's
what
it,
Claire
exactly.
referred to.
Thanks, Chair.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I wasn't sure whether it was to do with the control element, but no, this is in relation to the performance monitoring. So it's just really noting that while you do monitor performance and key performance indicators, it's split over multiple forums. So across the education committees, etc. And it was just, there's an opportunity to bring it together and have one central performance report presented to committees. I think it's noting that the full public performance report, which is published, doesn't actually go to an oversight committee. So it was really taking that in the whole and seeing whether there was something where overarching performance across the Comhairle could be considered by a governance board in addition to the service committees. So it's not saying that there's a gap, it's just noting that it's quite fragmented, and it's just encouraging you to consider an overarching review of performance as well.
Yeah, happy with that, Councillor McLean. Yeah.
No, thanks. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Ray Mackenzie.
Thanks, Chairman. It's just a general point, really. Have other local authorities been affected by the cyber attack in a similar way? And what's the situation with them? Are there any in Scotland, UK, whatever?
Probably Claire might be a better handle on that one. Claire, you able to answer that one?
Yes, so there are other councils in Scotland which have had cyber attacks, but none to the same extent as the Comhairle. So it's been on local systems. So there was one, another one of my clients, which was specifically on the education system. So there's not been any which have the same degree as the Comhairle. My understanding is there was one down south, Gloucestershire City, Gloucestershire Council, but I don't know what happened and how deep it went there. So I don't know the detail of that one. The closest one, I think, to the Comhairle would be SEPA, which I know is a central government body, but it suffered the same sort of damage as the Comhairle. And reassuringly, they are now back on track, and the Comhairle seems to be following a similar path. So with regards to the qualification of accounts. So hopefully we'll be in a good place next year.
Thank you, Claire. Thank you. I'm not seeing any further lights on questions or online. So do members agree the recommendation at 3.1 of the reports? Agreed. Thank you. Thank you, Claire, and thank you, Sandy, for that. Thank you. Okay, we move back to item 3. With the annual accounts, Sandy, of course, yeah. That's all part of it, yeah. Okay. Okay, we move now back to item 3 on our agenda. It's Governance Complaints Annual Report. This report's by noting and informs members of the publication of the Complaints Annual Report for 25-26. Charlene McMillan is present if any members have any questions to ask to the report. No. Seen any members? No. Okay. Members agreed to note the report. Thank you. And thank you for your attendance, Charlene. Thank you. Item 4, Local Code of Corporate Governance. This report provides an update of implementation of the Local Code of Corporate Governance Action Plan and seeks approval of the Code of Corporate Governance 25-26 and the Action Plan for 26-27. And Mr. Tim Langley is present to speak to the report and answer any questions, if any members have any questions. Councillor Gordon Murray.
Chair, I thought Mr. Langley was going to speak to the report.
Well, it's any add to the report. I don't know if
nothing
to add to the report.
Okay. Just looking at the action plan for 25-26, and suppose from a governance point of view, the timescale, it seems to be ongoing with limited progress described. So would it be possible to have some sort of way where progress is described with specific milestones, KPIs and reporting mechanisms, so that we can, especially for the new corporate strategy and the local outcomes improvement plan, so we can, review when they're delivered on time and achieve measurable improvements in governance and service outcomes. I might be missing something because I haven't checked the interplan for a while. It might be on there, but it'd be good if there was some sort of system. I know that we used to have is it called a red, amber, green system that would tell us, you know, how things progressed. And I think there was a decision to take that away. But I think it would be good for us to see how progress is made, because I think the descriptions are quite short.
I think, Norma, Ms. Skinner, do you want to be able to answer that, I think?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, there's a couple of points with this. The action plan that we have here is really just capturing in with the kind of work that's been done, specifically on the local code. So it doesn't provide the details. We've got a new corporate strategy and LOIP coming up, as you've said, and certainly we're doing a review of the performance reporting, going back to the audit point that we've just discussed as well. So we will be looking at all of these things going forward.
Somebody.
Just at one other point in this, and I think it's related to one of the internal audit reports. I wanted to know about the particular point on the OHCPP, and do we have any contingency arrangements in place if there's any delays in the LOIP?
Is that coming in on a later report, Councillor Murray?
I think
you want to take it
from a
now?
governance point of view, I think it's relevant.
You want to take it just now then? Okay, Ms. Skinner.
Sorry, I was just wondering, could you clarify what you mean by your question? I'm sorry, I wasn't quite understanding it.
So if there's partnership delays with the OHCPP, is there any contingencies arrangements in place?
Again, while we're pulling together the LOIP, we are also going to be looking at the governance arrangements around the LOIP and the reporting and how that's been done right through to the board, from the exec right through to the board. So that's part of what we're going to be building in with the new LOIP.
That's really good news. Great, thanks.
Was the choice, you know?
Thank you. You may not be aware, but on Tuesday of next week, the Deputy Leader and I are attending a session down in Edinburgh where we'll see the launch of a new CPP charter nationally. So, you know, whatever the implication of that is, we'll of course feed that through the current processes and procedures that we have in place as well.
Yeah, thank you, that was the choice. Thank you. Okay, no further questions on this one. So, so far as this committee's interests are concerned, the members agree the recommendation at 3.1. Thank you. Item 5 on your agenda, Scottish Public Service Ombudsman Annual Statistics 25-26. This report is to advise members of the terms of the Scottish Public Service Ombudsman's Annual Statistics for 25-26 and to highlight issues of relevance to the Comhairle. And Mrs. Skinner is present to answer any questions if anyone's got anything. To Councillor Murray again. Gordon Murray.
So I just want to say thanks for the report. I think it's positive to see low numbers. Overall, and no cases progressing to full investigation. And section 6 on continuous improvement and complaints handling mentions developing skills and learning lessons, which is very positive. So I wanted to ask, could the Chief Officer advise on what steps are being taken to ensure timely responses to complaints once a complaint has been referred to the SPSO? And in particular, are there any identified issues around response times or follow-up at that stage? And how is the Comhairle addressing any delays to maintain the high standards referenced in the report?
Thank you, Chair. Once a complaint goes to the SPSO, we have no control over the timeframes with it. They write to us if they are investigating, and of course, in this case, none were investigated last year. But what they would do is they would write to us and ask us to provide information by a specific date, and they're quite strict on that. So we do, if a complaint does go to investigation, we do provide them with the information at the time, within the timelines that they are setting, but we have no control over how long they then take to respond back to the complainant. We are completely separate from that. They're completely independent of the Comhairle. With regard to our own internal complaints, the stage 1, stage 2s, we're quite, we monitor quarterly the complaints and the timelines, and we work very closely with the services to build experience, to build information in terms of supporting the services to make sure that they're meeting complaint timelines. Some of the challenges can be if there's a complex complaint and you've got, you're trying to find different people to interview, etc., etc. If it goes over school holidays, etc., some of these areas can lead to exceptions within the complaint process, but that can be agreed with the complainant with explanation. So.
Thanks very much for that comprehensive answer. It blows my supplementary out of the water. So
good.
Thanks very much.
That's
good.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, members agreed to note this reporting. Sorry, Councillor McLean.
Can I don't know if it's competent to ask this, Orma, but when an individual or individuals have put in a complaint to whatever department, and the process is gone through, and then the complainant is not satisfied, and they tell that, does that then move on to SPSO? That's my question, because I know some people have come to me and have said that they're not happy with the way the conduct, the way that the complaint was conducted, and neither were they happy with those who were investigating the complaint within the department, and then the outcome they're not happy with, and they do say that, they write in to say they're not happy. Is it then up to the complainant to then go to the SPSO, or do the council then refer it on? Because the council have got a non-satisfied person there.
Skinner, you can answer that. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. On the whole, it would be, we would write at the end of a stage 2 complaint, which is the investigation stage, and we would advise them that they can go to the SPSO at that stage. If there was anything specific about complaint about conduct, we could maybe look at that separately. But that would be out with the complaint in itself. It would be separate to the complaint itself.
So follow on for that, then at that stage, when they say they're not satisfied, do you then realise that it moves into the SPSO stage? Mm-hmm. Or do the SPSO tell you that this is, they don't? That's my...
Yeah. The SPSO don't get in touch with us unless they are specifically investigating, and then they would get in touch with us.
Thanks. That's that's a clarity I was looking for.
Okay, thank you. Okay, members agreed to note the report then. Yeah, thank you. We now move on to the transformational plan. This report provides a progress update to members on the performance transformation project, and Ms. Skinner is present and will answer any questions if any members have any other questions to ask. Councillor Murray.
Yeah, I think the reason I keep going back to this transformational change is that it's hugely important for the organisation going forward, given the financial outlook we're facing. So they're very important. So I just wanted to ask about the, we've got risks identified in terms of our financial outlook, and I wanted to ask if the officer can outline the projected efficiency savings expected from the smart form programme and associated performance work over the next 12 to 24 months, maybe including baseline metrics if possible, to measure them. And I'll start with that one if that's okay.
Skinner, I think you might let your light on.
Thank you. This one is an efficiency project, so this isn't going to provide particular cash savings in that sense, in terms of being able to go back into the bank. But what it is it's providing efficiency in terms of what staff are working on, and it makes us, I suppose it makes life easier. It means that we can be more productive. I think that's really what we're looking at. But saying that, we are working with accountancy, and what we're doing is we're trying to map out when each of these efficiencies are created through the online forms, we're trying to capture, well, how many hours would that save in terms of work, and actually what grade that is, and then being able to capture a costing. We're hoping, you'll see at Appendix 1, we've got a list there, and I'm hoping that I'll have a more detailed report going to the September and the November series. And hopefully, if we're getting through quite a lot of these forms by then, we should have more information in terms of what we're capturing. And if we can make services who are under pressure more efficient in terms of the work they're doing, then that is good for customers and it's good for the services themselves. So that's what we're really trying to capture with that. But we will provide a cost saving, but it won't be kind of pounds in our purse, if that makes sense.
There's no comment to that one.
It's put me off.
Councillor Murray, sorry.
I just say that's welcome these reports, and if they could probably give us information on how this will contribute to the more, you know, fundamental transformational change required, and with measurable progress as well against, you know, the 3 outcome areas. You know, you've got operational effectiveness, which is probably obvious, customer services as well, and improved outcomes. So I would ask the second of 3 questions. Which elements of this work would you say represents a shift in how the COLA operates?
Sorry, can you say that again?
Sorry, just a general question. What elements of this work would represent a genuine material shift in how the COLA operates as an organisation?
Well, with regard to this, there's 3 separate projects. So it's going back to the fact that this is one of the 3. So there's the digital one, which is looking at the big systems and how they're working across the CORLA. There's the PSR one. And there's this one on efficiency. Efficiency, there's a lot that can actually be achieved by efficiency. There's a lot of the way that we work where we might have moved away a bit from paper, but what we're actually doing is we're creating paper forms in Word, and then they have to be then processed and information lifted from that into Excel or whatever else. So they're clunky processes that we're trying to tidy up. Again, with AI, there's potential with AI to tidy up a lot of this work as well. So I think these are areas that we're beginning to explore, but it needs a bit of time to make sure that we're doing it and we're doing it right.
That's great. I just got one more
question.
Chair, I really appreciate the dialogue, and I'm thankful to the officers for these comprehensive questions. I hope the other 2 projects will be reported back in September as well. But the last question I was going to ask was about the strategic risk that was highlighted in that box at 4.1, I think it is, regarding workforce capacity, and you know, how is the project being adequately resourced to meet the timelines across multiple services without additional staffing, you know, implications, because it's quite difficult. These are great projects, but they have to be resourced adequately to see the benefits.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. Yes, there is challenges in getting the forums up and running, but potential is that if these forums are up and running, then they release staff capacity. That's the real thing with them, is that the hope is that this will actually create more staff capacity to do the other things that are required across all the services.
Thanks, Chair.
Yeah, thank you for the questions, Councillor Murray, and thank you, Ms Skinner, for your input. Any other questions? No? Okay, and so far as this committee is concerned, the members agree to note this report then? Thank you. We're now moving on to internal audit matters, item 7 on your agenda. This report by the Chief Internal Auditor details the internal audit needs assessment and the strategic audit plan for the period 26-29. And Mr. Peter Thomas, our Chief Internal Auditor, will speak to this report and answer any questions.
Thank you, Chair. So the strategic audit plan for 26-29 being presented today has been prepared following consultation with key stakeholders, including chief officers and other key officers, whose input into the process is much appreciated. Having gathered the base information, internal audit undertook a risk assessment process following a model which considered and scored 8 specific factors. Internal audit resources will be directed towards those risks which are ranked as high, medium-high, or medium. It is not intended for us to undertake internal audit work on those risks which are ranked as medium, low, or low. Internal audit will review the strategic plan on an annual basis to determine whether there needs to be changes made in terms of risk, concerns, or priority. This strategic audit plan being presented is for scrutiny and seeks authority from the committee to the plan. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas.
Take questions.
Do members have any questions on the plan in front of us? No. Sorry, Councillor McLean. Yeah,
it's to do with sorry, Chair, to do with the auditable systems. You've got a diagram there to tell us how you match against total scores, medium, high, and medium, high. On what basis? I'm sure you have some basis on which you mark these as either high or low. For instance, I noticed that school meals, for instance, under 44, and then you've got others at 2, which is high. Children's services at 234, which I would expect to be high. When do you do that on an audit basis, or how do you mark these? How can you come to a score? That's what I'm just saying. It's from a basis of total ignorance that I'm asking this.
Mr. Thomas.
How you can score some of these the way you're scoring them. I'm sure you've got some argument for it, but
there won't be an argument. A solution he's got.
Yeah, no, it's an astute question.
Well, it's an argument why he's doing it,
Councillor. So there's 8 specific factors we consider. I may not be able to run the whole of them off the top of my head, but it's in terms of financial materiality, legal compliance, public interest, reputational risk, meeting the objectives of the COLA, and there's also weight into the chief officer's views on whether there's risks being identified in their service. There's a scoring matrix to each of those 8 categories where the risk is either high, low, or medium in between. Each one of those translate into a scoring matrix system, so we get scores out of can't recall the total of scores, about 200, and that fits into a low, medium, and high.
So it's the department that scores that. Do you put out the matrix to the department, and the department come back with the score? Is that how?
We send out the matrix to the department to get their scores, then we sit down with the department and consider the scores.
I see.
We come to an agreement on what scores should be.
Thanks, Sheila.
Do you understand it now, Councillor McLean? Okay, do members agree? Sorry, Councillor Finnegan, didn't see your light on. Councillor Finnegan.
So can I ask, what's this actually showing? If you don't mind me asking, and just in my ignorance, what's it actually showing me?
In simple terms, this is the audits we're going to perform over the next 3 years. Each year we will review to see if there's any topical matters or reasons to change that plan. It's allocating our work over the next 3 years for internal audits which are going to be carried out.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, with that then, no further questions? No. Members agree the details on the internal audit needs assessment then and the strategic audit plan?
So if the departments get this matrix and they decide to, we don't want really you to audit us. I'm being a bit investigative here, or maybe facetious, maybe a word for it. But and then they say, we're going to mark it lower. I think that's what maybe Paul was saying, what's it going to show us? So if we're going to mark it lower, that means we won't get you guys, you audit guys, coming on top of us. So I'm just being, you know, am I right?
No, it's a good question to the integrity of the system. I can say fairly each chief officer, I believe, was candid and scored. It is a balancing act. We are a service to the COLA. They are challenged on their scores. The scoring system then gets sent to the management team of the council, and then we challenge each other's chief officers to see if they're getting away light. I would challenge the chief officers if I believe the score was wrong. If I believe they was deliberately scoring low, then I would report that to the chair and vice chair of the audit committee. So it's in the interest of chief officers to have audits. We encourage them to do so. We believe there is value added for our work. I believe that is in the main respected by chief officers. So we don't have that challenge, but there are controls in place should somebody come back with a spurious scoring system.
That's good.
Thank you, Councillor.
I'm glad to hear there is such a thing as challenge.
Absolutely, Councillor. Thank you. Okay, Councillor Finnegan. Finally, this will be the last
Yeah,
question.
sorry. So generally, on how much notice are the departments getting before they're audited?
Try to fit in with the services for when they can meet us. Accounts is one good example. They have auditors at the moment, so we fit in a little later into the programme. We've tried to fit in with the services when they can assist us. There tends to be about 2 to 3 weeks.
2 to 3 weeks, roughly, yeah.
Terms of reference to the audit with the service.
Yeah, and then they would get this list. Do they get this list, or is it random? They don't know when they're going to be inspected.
No, they get this list and we fit in with them. It's not an unannounced audit. All audits follow a terms of reference and is announced.
Right. Okay. I have a bit of an issue with that, but anyway, that's
okay. So do members then the details of the internal audit needs assessment and strategic audit plan for 26-29? Yeah. Thank you. Item 8 now in your agenda is a key documentation update. This report by the Chief Internal Auditor seeks approval of revisions made to the Internal Audit Charter and anti-fraud, corruption, bribery and irregularity strategy and response arrangements, and also for the committee to note the updated Internal Audit Manual. And Mr. Peter Thomas again will speak to this. Mr. Thomas.
Thank you, Chair. So updates to 3 internal audit documents are being presented to this meeting of the Audit and Scrutiny Committee. Firstly, the Internal Audit Charter, which details internal audit's purpose, authority, responsibility and position within the COLA. Secondly, some minor revisions to the anti-fraud policy. And thirdly, the annual update to the Internal Audit Manual. Again, I'm Chair, happy to take questions.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. I'll lot of reading in these reports. So, members have any comments or questions? No. Members, I could do the recommendation at 3.1. Thank you. We're now moving into the item on the agenda where we have follow-up reviews for internal audit. The first one's item 9 in your agenda, preschool education. This report by the Chief Internal Auditor provides an update on the findings of the original report on preschool education, which was issued on 6th August 2025. And again, Mr. Thomas will speak to this report and answer any questions. Mr. Thomas.
Thank you, Chair. So the follow-up to the preschool education audit identified 4 of the 6 audit recommendations have been completed. Since the follow-up work, there's been progress on one of the remaining recommendations, which is now anticipated to be completed in July. The remaining area relates to outstanding debts, which is being consolidated into the overall debtors audit, which will be presented later in this meeting. Again, happy to take questions.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Members, any questions on this one? No. Okay, Councillor Ray McKenzie.
Yeah, it was just on that. So we're going to get more details at the end of or during the meeting about 76,000 debt. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's coming. We'll take that up in the next report.
Yeah. Okay.
McKenzie, yeah. Okay. Any further questions then at this stage? No. Okay. Members agreed to note this report then. Thank you. Item 10, recycling and waste process. This report again by the Chief Internal Auditor provides an update on the findings of the original report on recycling and waste processing, which was issued on 6th August 2025. And Mr. Thomas will speak to this report and answer any questions. Mr. Thomas.
Thank you, Chair. So this follow-up has identified that 7 of the 8 audit recommendations have been completed. The remaining recommendation, which relates to road markings around the Creed Hydrogen Skills Innovation Centre, has been progressed to design stage, but not yet implemented at the time of this follow-up. Thank you, Chair.
Quite a lot of progress been done since this came to the committee last, so it's good to see that. Thank you. Members, no questions? No. Okay, members agreed to note this report. Thank you. Item 11, Father. This report again by the Chief Internal Auditor provides an update on the findings of the original report of Father, which was issued on 3rd November 2025. And Mr. Thomas again will speak to this report and answer any questions. Mr. Thomas.
Thank you, Chair. I'm pleased to report that all 4 of the audit recommendations have been implemented for the FAR.
Again, another good report. Thank you. And this shows the importance and the value of follow-up reports. So, okay, no questions. Members agreed to note the report then. Thank you. We now move on to the completed reviews from internal audit and agenda. The first one's at item 12, and it's accounts receivable. This report provides an overview of the CONUS arrangements for the operation and management of accounts receivable. And Erica Geddes from our internal audit team will speak to the report, and then I'll ask Mr. Gomez to come in and speak to the report, and then the Chief Executive will follow on from there. Ms. Erica first. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This report has been prepared for the internal audit review of accounts receivable and debt recovery as part of the operational internal audit plan of 25-26. I would like to apologise. During the meeting, I noticed on the front page I have written 24-25, but it is part of this 25-26 plan. Based on the audit work carried out, an overall opinion is that limited level of assurance can be placed upon the control environment of the area under review. There were 3 high, 5 medium and 1 low recommendation made following the audit. The concluding remarks are shown in section 1.5, with the most significant issues arising from the review being that the debt management policy was to be reviewed. This has been undertaken. Debt monitoring is to be undertaken as per policy, and all outstanding debt to be followed up as a matter of urgency.
Thank you. Mr. Gomez.
Thanks, Chair. Just to provide some context or additional context around the report, the revenues and benefits team, as I'm sure you're all aware, were the hardest hit teams following the cyber attack. And so work has been ongoing to recover a lot of the systems. So following the cyber attack, we took advice from other councils. One of them was mentioned by Claire Gardner earlier, Gloucester Council and also Hackney, in order to learn from them what to prioritise. Now, obviously, council tax and non-domestic rates are our primary sources of income. Council tax takes in around 16 million a year. Non-domestic rates takes in about 10 million a year. So inevitably, it was these systems that were prioritised as being recovered first through the process. Debtors is the next part of the process, and we've been working on that with considerable extra resources for the last few months. In fact, since December 2025, we deployed additional resources, and we're currently reviewing the staff to put some significant extra resource into the section to try and manage some of those backlogs. As a note, just about the other councils hit, both these councils that I mentioned were attacked to what we understand is a much lesser extent. It took them around 3 or 4 years to recover. So while we still have some work to do, I think it's quite remarkable how far we've come over the last couple of years following the cyber attack, given the extent that we were hit. And the team in particular has been under extreme challenges. They have worked tirelessly, and I'm very proud of the work that they have done. To provide some context around some of the figures in the report, as we look at it at the moment, out of those figures of debt, around 7.5 million of that relates to residential care debt. So this is debt that we can only actually enforce and or recover when there's an actual estate or an executory to claim from. So as you would imagine, there's not always going to be money to claim from estates. So we do have provisions in the accounts for the potential non-recovery. So as far as the accounts go, we have around £5 million in the accounts, which relates to some provisions for bad debt, so potential non-recovery of that debt. So that's just to provide some context around the fact that, around 3/4 of that debt relates to residential care, some of which we are not actually going to be able to recover due to the circumstances of the individuals upon their passing. So for the remaining debt, that is general debt, which is mostly raised throughout the year, although some of the totals in here do include some of the historic debt due to the backlog following the cyber attack. So this debt includes some amounts that are already going through recovery processes. And as a side note to that, we did some analysis from 31st of March 2026 to today, and around £2 million of debt has been recovered over that timescale. So it shows that there is a huge amount of work ongoing in the background to try and identify that debt, recover that debt, and go through all the processes that are required. So that's just to give some context around the report in front of you. The recommendations, we have agreed to all the recommendations that relate to us. I do feel these are all just minor improvements. I did seek to challenge the assurance level with the Chief Internal Auditor. We have accepted the way it is. We have accepted that there are improvements that we have to make. But we do feel that the team is working very hard under extreme circumstances, and I do think that the processes are working well, and we'll work to improve those and put those additional extra resources into the team to speed things up, to get that recovery processes back to pre-cyber levels.
Thank you, Mr. Gold. Before I take a Chief Executive, there's a perception out in the community from certain people that they don't need to pay that account because we've lost the detail. Can we put something in place to make sure that that message is reversed and that we are actually pursuing these dates now, so that people aren't of the opinion, well, we don't need to do anything about it? Because that is out in the community. There are people who think they can get even from small amounts to large amounts. They think we've lost their detail and they don't need to pay. So just getting that message out in a press release or whatever to the public to say, look, we have your details, you need to pay, we are coming back to you. I just want to throw that in at the stage. So I'll ask the Chief Executive now.
Thank you. Members should know that since joining the Comhairle, the issues around the cyber attack have been something that has been of real interest to me in terms of understanding the root cause of the cyber attack, the impact that it's had across the organisation, across multiple services, the recovery processes that have been implemented across all of those services, and of course what the future posture of the organisation looks like to ensure any potential risk of reoccurrence is mitigated. I don't think we could ever eliminate the future risk of cyber attack, but certainly there's certain additional mitigations that we could put in place. So I think looking at that, I have had some previous experience of cyber attacks. The University of West of Scotland suffered what I would call a catastrophic cyber attack, probably on a par with SIPA. I wouldn't place the attack which happened to the Comhairle in the same scenario, where both SIPA and University of West of Scotland lost access to all systems and all data, not just financial systems, for example. And it'll take them a long time to recover. In fact, SIPA continue to recover to this day. So that's incredibly important to me, and it's incredibly important that we move forward with the right posture and the right attitude and the right level of investment that ensures the integrity of the data, the systems, and of course the health and well-being of our staff is critically important when that introduces pressure on those individuals to respond to such events. Moving forward, the Chief Financial Officer and I have discussed a number of the points that have been raised here today. I would like to just provide a degree of reassurance that we are putting in additional resources to try and support the recovery of those systems, and that we will take that forward and we'll continue to report on those as we come forward. So extremely challenging, but hopefully, as we've demonstrated, there is reasonable progress, good progress being made in terms of that recovery, and it certainly continue to support that in the months and years ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think we would want, before I opened up for questions, I think we would want this report to keep coming to our audit committee to see the progress. So from every committee going forward, it'd be good to see a follow-up on this, to see the before I open, Councillor Mackenzie, you had a question on a previous report which was going to be carried into this one. Do you want to ask that question first before you go into the detail of this report?
So you could tell me what my question was. I actually wanted to come in on this specific report just now.
Do you want to just cover the whole thing then? And
yeah. Okay. You're talking about the 76,000.
That's a question you asked.
Yeah. Okay, but first of all, I want to congratulate the department concerned, because as we know, it's been a very difficult time, and so much extra work has had to go into this. But what I'm concerned about, there's figures here and all the rest of it, but are the backups which are in place now since the cyber attack. Are we in a position that basically there's backups up to, so that maybe if such a thing happened again, that there will only be 1 day worth of information lost, and there's physical backups been taken? First of all, that's my main question.
Okay. So Loomis, I'm just leave your light on. I think I'll be after a few questions.
It's probably more a question for the IT manager to answer, but we are assured that the backups that are in place now are sufficient and modern, up to date, and effective. And there's different tiers of levels of backups, from backups at the disaster recovery site, which are immutable backups, we're told, so they cannot be corrupted. But there's also off-site cloud-based backups as well. So multiple backups. That's my assurance. So we're as the chief executive has alluded to, we can never be 100% certain that we're never going to be attacked or that we're not going to suffer damage again. But certainly certainly with my old role as chief internal auditor and the reviews that I've done around the cyber attack recovery, it was my understanding that the processes that are in place now are way above and beyond what we had previously, and that gives me assurance that the backups are strong. But the IT manager would have to give more details on the nature of the backups and how they work and everything else. It's slightly beyond me.
Councillor Finnegan, I think you had your light on.
Thanks. Yeah, I forgot to say it last time, I'm not a member of your committee. It was just a quick query. It was actually off, not really directly, but the as you said, basically 3/4 of this is residential care. Do you get any kind of I know this is maybe a silly question, but do we get any kind of rebate back from the Scottish Government, or is this we carry all this debt? So this is basically a ticking time bomb, basically.
Yeah, effectively, but
yeah,
a ticking. I mean, the figures make it look worse than it actually is. I mean, as long as heaven forbid all these people don't pass away at the exact same time, then the debt's going to be written off over a period of time. For example, some of it will be recovered through estates, some of it will not be, and we'll have to write it off. That comes through the Policy and Resources Committee for writing off debt. As it did
and do you have any idea of the percentage? I know it's really hard to just judge it because it's changing all the time, but just a rough idea, maybe even.
Of what we might have to write off?
Of the percentage of estates, yeah, of resident your charges on residential care.
For example, I can give you the figures. So we have approximately 7.5 million relates to residential care debt. We provide a provision in the accounts of between 40 and 50% of that debt that we expect to not recover. So we do. So that's the expectation, that between 40 and 50% is unlikely that we're
of the 7 million.
Yes.
Yeah, but generally in terms of the amount that you charge to the amount that you are going to debt, like you've got 7 here. What have you charged that has been paid in percentage terms? Any idea?
We don't have the figures to that.
No.
I mean, It does do work in different. If we raise the invoices and somebody has the ability to pay, then it immediately goes into a debt recovery process, or where they can pay by instalments, or they pay the invoices off. For everything else, it's just got to sit there until there is an estate or an executive in order for us to claim
so
from.
it's very hard to judge.
It's hard to judge. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
I've got one or two. Councillor Colin McLean's first, and I've got Ronald Fraser then online, and then Councillor George Murray. So Councillor Colin McLean first.
Thanks, Chair. May I first of all say that I've been in great admiration of the internal audit team ever since I've come on to Audit and Scrutiny. Before that, I was as well, and I think it's you're doing a great work. And the more I see what you're doing, actually, and the more you're coming out with, I would compliment you on what you're doing. You're adding challenge to what is happening in the whole of the council, and I would say, one of the core departments in the council, and you're doing extremely good work, first of all. And thanks, first of all, for Sandy for giving us a wee bit of light upon what came into the press of £11 million, never recoverable. You know, something like this came to, I got to something that was in the press. I'm sure some of you got it. I got it. I didn't see it, but I got it posted on to me, asking what on earth is happening to our council, that you're £11 million. So actually to put it into context today, with £7.5 million in residential care debt, and then you're already said that you're almost recovering 2 million. We're nearly within 2 million of it, which is in a sense good. May I say that in residential care debt, I've been on the IHIB for a while. I've been talking to the care homes and to residents, family and such thing. The process is all wrong of recovering debt. I've been speaking to some people, families, and they say the first thing that I think should happen when somebody goes into a care home, they should be evaluated and assessed. And some of the families have said this, that if they would have known at the beginning, in other words, if a person comes in and has a house and comes from a house, then they could be told at that period that this will be evaluated against what is going to happen. In other words, some of them don't know that it's going to cost £1,000 a week. So if they had an idea of that when they went into, because now when it happens when the person dies. You know, and that's no time to collect debt. When a person dies, then you're looking around and you're scrambling for £7.5 million. Can, first of all, that be done? Can an evaluation of the person and the person's worth or whatever, or the person's details, can that be done when they go into care in the first? That's my first question.
I was of the opinion that was what was happening with Councillor McLean. There was an evaluation done.
Is it done?
I see, Mr. Stewart, you can come in maybe. And I was of the opinion that an assessment was done of every person that was going into care, of their assets and all that, and they were actually told, the family were told what the cost was going to be. But Councillor McLean seems to think that's different. So could you maybe confirm the process? And
yeah, I mean, look, yeah, thanks, Chair. I can confirm that is the process. The process is that when consideration is given for what level of care that somebody requires that meets substantial or critical need in terms of whether somebody can stay at home, or if it is the case that we're considering that somebody needs to go into residential care, financial charging is a big part of the discussion that takes place about that early on. I can't speak for the people that have obviously approached you directly about that and about their own understanding, but certainly within the system that we have, information is provided at an early stage about both what is taken into account in terms of financial charging, because it depends on your status within the residential care. Some people go in as temporary residents, sometimes that they're waiting other things to take place, so it may be that they come back out of care. There's a different rate of charging for that than there would be in terms of what is taken into account in the financial assessment. If you were a permanent resident, which may include property, as you highlighted at that point, what I think it's very difficult to say what the individual experience is, but I know from having spoken to families directly at different times myself that a part is it tends to be that somebody is admitted that things can be very difficult at home, things can be in crisis. Whilst being provided the information, sometimes people don't always register and take into account what's been said. So we have deliberately as the department made sure that they get things followed up in writing, because it can be in what is an emotionally charged discussion about somebody's placement within a care home of a loved one, that it is the case that not everybody remembers all the details of all a big discussion. So there's certainly reinforced messages that are given by the department and the service. I'm certainly assured that we do what we can to let families know about the financial assessment obligations. That specifically includes the level of charging for where it is that people will go to, so they're able to make a fully informed choice. If there are other cases that comes up where people are feeling they've not been given the information, we're happy to review that and to have a look at it. If people can raise it with me individually, I'd be grateful for that information, because it can be the case that maybe not all the information has gone out, and I'm happy to have a look at that. But I can certainly reassure the Chamber this morning that the process is in place to ensure that, along with our financial charging colleagues within the Council, that we routinely scrutinise the information we send out to families, so that they're fully appraised of what's expected when a loved one goes into a home.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Before I ask her to come in, I'm going to ask Jenny from the Revenues and Benefits to come in and explain her side out to us.
Thank you, Chair. So my team's responsible for doing the financial assessments in terms of people who go into care homes. And at the moment, there is no backlog on financial assessment. Most financial assessments will be done shortly after the person goes in. We'll start within the first 8 weeks. We'll start requesting information from the families. Unfortunately, there are some cases, and they are few and far between, but there will be some cases where the resident may be lacking capacity, and we may be waiting for a guardianship order to go into place. So there's nobody who can provide that information at that time, and we need to wait until the guardianship is in place. And sometimes, unfortunately, that person may pass away, so it may happen that the financial assessment happens after the person has passed away. But in most cases, we would aim to have the letters out to the family regarding the financial information we need within that first 8 weeks that the person is in the care home. And then we're relying on them coming back with that information for us to do the financial assessment. Once we get the information, the statistics at the moment we're sitting at 35 days from when we have all the financial information to getting the bill out to the family, so that they're aware of what the charges are going to be.
Thank you, Jenny, for that. Does that clarify the situation?
It does, but it's not what's happening on the ground. I'm just saying what I've on a number of occasions, and even visiting the homes, it's not what's happening on the ground. I'll give you two or three examples. One example is
don't go into any private, into any.
No, I won't go into any details. It takes a wee while after. I'm not saying that the death of somebody and the relative is then a substantial period. I think it's not within months, so it's even further than that. They get the bill. The bill is given. The bill has hit them at X number of £1,000. Comes as a complete shock to them. That's happened. So that has happened, and it's happened on more than one occasion I've had. The other one is when you go into home, the person has a home, and the person hasn't got a family. That home is, the family are not told that this person is home, and the home is going to be taken as repayment of the debt. If they haven't got the money, that they would have to sell the home. That home, I've seen it in one occasion, it's been nearly 5, 6, 7, 8, and 10 years after they passed away, it's gone into disrepair. And the home, the actual home itself, the residential home, have said they should have had that earlier, and they could have acted upon it. In other words, to tell them that they could sell the home as quick as possible. And that has happened as well. So I'm saying that the recovery of the debt doesn't happen as quick as it should, and that they are not informed that the home or the croft could be part of liable. What happens is if the person is left a croft, that croft is liable because it is finance, because the croft is worth something. Yeah, so they have to sell the croft. And that happens, and I'm not saying that's wrong. But that person who receives that information has got to, because they haven't got the £20,000 or whatever, they have to sell it because they haven't got it. They haven't been informed earlier. It comes as a bit of a shock to them. So I'm saying that needs a wee bit. The instances that I've had, It doesn't seem to, I didn't think that this was done at the time when they went into the home, and this was then put out to the family, that they were informed about what could happen. That's what I'm saying. Information prior to the death.
You could probably have further dialogue with Jennifer and the team, maybe out of the committee. Now, I see a couple of you want to come in on the back of this.
I'll just leave it. I feel that that's part of the lack of $7.5 million. It's a lot of money.
I've got the leader and then I've got the chief internal auditor. I want to come in on this before I bring the others in. So leader first.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks to Colin for raising that point. I do think this is a wider discussion. Like I say, I'm not really sure if it's linked to this report, but I think we just did something slightly separate. But I would also encourage, if anyone comes to amendment with that information, they should be coming to our departments and getting that resolved.
Absolutely.
Because if we're not aware of it, we can't address it, and that's the whole point of audit and scrutiny. Well, if you're hearing it, then we need to get that passed on so that that doesn't happen again, because that's not a situation anyone wants to be in. That's the reason we have these audits, to ensure that the processes are in place. The audit reports are saying that they are.
Yeah, I mean, you bring an example that you have come to Jenny out with the meeting, and then she could maybe give you a bit more detail, or between you could maybe.
The point I was going to make, and it was because Councillor McCormack isn't here, is the system is not the system that we would want anyway. And that's something that we need to be looking to change, because we know how much this costs us, and we should be looking to change it so that there's a way that it's covered from possibly central government funding, so that we're not having to take the money out of families' pockets. But again, that's a wider political thing, and I think the Chamber have mentioned this on a number of occasions. It's something that we need to look at, so it's possibly something we need to bring up in possibly Policy and Resource Committee about a position that we take going forward. So thanks.
Thank you, Leader. Mr. Thomas, you want
to? Yeah, thank you, Chair. Reporting to the board, we do have on our strategic plan to review an internal audit of financial assessments this year, which would be on the plan, so we can carry out internal audit work in the sensitive manner we can. I'm happy to engage with councillors, or the auditor engage with councillors, the feedback, and to dovetail in with the COLA on the systems, the COLA one. So that is an audit which is coming up, if that gives some reassurance.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I've got Councillor Ronald Fraser online first. Ronald, good morning.
Yes, good morning. Thank you, Chair, and can I thank the audit team for this report. It's just a side question in relation to the subject matter of small-scale debt recovery. I've noted of late in the national media that debt collection services and its sector has been revolutionised and assisted by the advent of AI. So I wonder if I could ask Mr. Gomez if this is a resource, in his opinion, which the colony could equip itself with. Thank you.
Mr. Gomez.
Thanks, Chair. I certainly see some capabilities of AI going forward. I know that some of HR and IT are planning to test some advanced parts of AI with the Microsoft systems at the moment with Copilot to see and feedback what the actual benefits are. So certainly, I think long term, I do think that AI is going to have a role to play. I certainly don't think it's in the role of replacing people, but it certainly has a role to play in efficiency and speeding up processes. And certainly, there are a lot of digital improvements that can help the teams, particularly this team, and it was in my outcome delivery report yesterday around digital enhancements with regards, even small things such as e-billing, so that we can be emailing out invoices and things like that, and the same for council tax. But yes, I agree, Councillor Fraser, AI is going to have a role to play in the future, and certainly we'll look at those opportunities when they come up. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Gomes. Thank you. I've got Councillor George Murray and then Councillor Gordon Murray. George first.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks to the audit team. I think I agree with Councillor Steele that this is worthy of wider debate. It's a big subject, particularly the care aspect. I wonder, it must be very frustrating for you, Sandy, and the rest of the team, when there's a huge debt going to be incurred, and it's going to become a bad debt. That must be extremely frustrating, and you just know it's going to happen, and you have to sit here and take flak for that, at this committee. but you just know it's going to happen? And are there any steps? Can be, putting it very simply, you know, I would go to the bank, try and get a bank loan as a young man and get knocked back more than once. And how do we mitigate against incurring bad debt whilst our duty of care is paramount? I don't maybe have an answer, maybe you don't. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Murray. Thomas?
Actually, I think the leader alluded to it in that it's probably more a political decision as to how the Scottish Government can actually support these kind of circumstances so that the onus doesn't fall on us having to write off debt in the future. You know, absolutely. You know, there is a frustration there about having to go through the recovery processes, and you know, there is the element of compassion there, where you're asking families of bereaved loved ones for recovery of debts. And of course, it's not an ideal situation to be in, but it is the nature of the beast that we are living in at the moment.
And I think we have to take cognizance of Jennifer, particularly, and the team, and Sandy. You know, we're approaching them today, but imagine what the public are on the telephone line to these people are. You know, so we've got to appreciate the work that they are doing. You know, and we do appreciate all of it. So, thanks, Gordon Murray.
Thanks, Chair. It was just a comment on the childcare invoices. I know that, firstly, I note that management comment has not been received. I don't know if that's updated, but what my concern is that it looks like there's been accumulation of possibly £16,000 in one case or a number of cases. I'm just concerned how that's going to be recovered, given that the fact that it's a family. It's a huge amount of money to be recovering. Are we going to retrieve it or ask for it in a sensitive way, given household pressures, you know, family pressures, and our own problem with childcare provision? So I wanted to know how that was going to be recovered, or the engagement, and I wanted to ask what's been done differently now to try and avoid that situation, what process in place, because I think if a family was hit by a £16,000 bill, I think it'd be devastating.
Thank you for the question. And I did challenge that briefing actually about the management comment, because I did notice there was no management comment, and Mr. MacLeod is present today as well to explain why. Because one of the things we do ask for, and as chair of this committee, I also ensure we get a management comment in the time in the lead. So first of all, I think the auditor wants to come in, Erica, and then I'll ask Mr. MacLeod to come in. So.
Thank you, Chair. I was just going to say that we have a Chief Officer to answer to that one, and discussions we'd had about that after the report was issued. In regards to the 16,000, that was one case. It wasn't multiple cases, and the majority of that debt, I believe, has been repaid.
It's good. Okay. Yeah, but I'll ask the Chief Officer to come in on the management comment as well, just to clarify the situation.
Thank you very much, Chair. And first of all, I wish to note our apologies of the service to the audit team and to the committee for the failure of the relevant officers to provide the comment as requested. There were some clerical errors within the department that resulted in that not being submitted in time for the publication of the report, and we've put measures in place to make sure that that does not recur. The comment has subsequently been provided and will feature in the report for the purposes of monitoring and future reporting on performance. The comment indicates that the service fully agrees with the recommendations and will provide training, awareness raising and support to early years administrative staff in implementation and consistent application of the current policy for pursuit of debts, including application of the conditions of service that users sign up to in contract when enrolling young people, children, should I say, into the service. The service has requested some written policy and procedures and support from the debtors service and debt recovery, and we'll work with them to complete that. The service also does want to undertake a review of the policy to make sure that the policy continues to be compliant with the likes of UNCRC, equalities and legal duties. The service is concerned, and I think it's maybe partly referenced in Councillor Murray's question, in terms of the potential inadvertent impacts of denial of service. The policy currently states that if a debt is accrued, a childcare service is denied, and that may present us with two problems in terms of compounding poverty factors for a family. If a child is not able to access childcare services, that may result in the parent not being able to work, which could compound a family's financial situation. In addition, it denies the child access to childcare and learning, which they may be entitled to receive. And the report rightly identifies that that sits outside the statutory 1140 hours provision, which must continue, but that we have to consider the impact on children of the denial of the voluntary aspect of the service as well. So the service wishes to undertake a review of the policy to make sure it continues to be compliant, and in recognition of the importance of pursual of the debts that are accrued and work to try and reduce and avoid situations that accrue the debt, but also to recognise that there be circumstances where they will need to work with families to ensure that a denial of service does not result in further difficulty and compromise of a family situation. We've heard in the Chamber already this week, Chair, about the importance of childcare as economic infrastructure and the importance that it has to, as I say, our economy and the ability of parents to work, and we don't want to cause inadvertent difficulty through that. But we also recognise that it's not an acceptable position for debt to be accrued, and we must have measures to address that. So the service is aware of the issues, it accepts the recommendations, but also wishes to go a bit further and to review that policy to ensure that it's compliant and has measures in to support families to address debt prior to a matter of last resort of denial of service. I would take any further questions or supplementaries.
I'd just like to thank the officer for that response. That's really reassuring, and the department has taken all things into consideration, the environment that we're in at the moment. So that's really reassuring. I'm grateful for that response. Thanks.
Councillor Duncan McInnes, and I think then finally, I think just Councillor McInnes.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thank you for the audit team. Just on looking at assessing assets, we did have a members seminar about 2 years ago that looked very closely at croft houses in particular, and croft houses that hadn't been decrofted, and croft houses that still had the croft attached to them. And we discussed that at length at the seminar, and my recollection then was those were included as the assets, and you had about 22,000 left at that particular time that couldn't be touched on. So we have had a seminar, and I certainly agree with the leader that probably it's right that we do have a closer look as move forward. But members did have a seminar and voted on croft housing in particular at that particular time. So I think we should revisit it, particularly when we're hearing, the length of time that is being taken to, to finalise, the estates. But there was some that I think it was 22,000 that was left in the estate at that particular time.
Thank you for that, Mr. McInnes. Okay, then. So do members agree the recommendation at 3.1 and that we bring this back to the next series in September for another update? And we value the Chief Executive's input that maybe more resource will be given to Jennifer and the accounts team to chase up some of this debt that we have, and possibly get a press release out to try and tell the public that we haven't lost their detail, that we will be getting their detail, and we will be chasing the ones that haven't paid their debt to offset the press release that came out on Monday. Okay, members agree to recommendation at 3.1 then. Thank you. We move on to item 13, adult services. This report by the Chief Internal Auditor provides an overview of the CONUS arrangements for the operational management of adult services, learning disability day services, and our Trelock core and cluster. And Morag Richardson from the Internal Audit team will speak to this report and answer any questions. Morag.
Thank you, Chair. This report has been prepared following an internal audit review of adult services for learning disability, covering day services and our Trelock core and cluster. Based on the audit work carried out, a reasonable level of assurance was placed upon the area under review. 14 recommendations were made, 6 medium and 8 low. Concluding remarks can be seen in section 1.3, and findings included Formal minutes to be retained for all future placements to Archieloch and Housing Support Services. Risk assessments for both services to be reviewed, ensuring completion of declaration forms and review of the service provision at Comhairle Day Centre. There's been good progress made to date on the recommendations. 9 of the recommendations that have target dates for implementation in May and June 2026 have been implemented.
Thank you, Maura. To members, any questions? Councillor Gordon-Murray.
Just a quick question. Why is there a resistance to the Eclipse system?
You would answer that, Maura.
I think Marianne McKeever is available to
Is she available? Marianne online? Hi, good morning, Marianne. Can you hear us? Are you hearing the discussion?
Sorry, I was on mute. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah.
Yes, it's another IT system that's been looked at for the care homes, which my colleague is leading on, and that's Care Beans, but it's currently it's being utilised in one of the private care homes. So they're in the early stages of exploring that system.
Thank you, Marianne.
So quite hopeful or positive that it will be.
I think so, yeah. That's a message coming out, Gordon. Yeah, thank you. Okay, do members agree to note the report then? Thank you. Thank you, Marianne. Okay, item 14 on the agenda, contract audit. This report by the Chief Internal Auditor provides an overview of the CONUS arrangements for the operation and management of contract audits. And Mr. Peter Thomas, our Chief Internal Auditor, will speak to the report and answer any questions. Mr. Thomas? Sorry, it's Erica is going to speak. Erica Gedd is going to speak to the report. Okay, Erica, sorry about that.
Thank you, Chair. Based on the work carried out in this area, we were able to offer a substantial level of assurance. There were 3 recommendations made, 1 medium and 2 low. The concluding remarks in 1.2 detail the main points. One of them was training to be provided in relation to single source supplier requests and enhancements to be made on the Council's website to provide clear guidance on how to bid for work and introducing mechanisms for supplier registration and for publication of awards.
Thank you.
Happy to take any questions.
Members, any questions for Eric? No. Okay, members agree to note the report. Thank you. Item 15, outcomes of Outer Hebrides Community Partnership. This report by the Chief Internal Auditor provides an overview of the arrangements of the Community Planning Partnerships processes and controls to the review and reporting of progress towards meeting the local outcome improvement plan. And Mr. Thomas will speak to this report and answer any questions. Mr. Thomas.
Thank you, Chair. So this internal audit was carried out as part of the operational annual internal audit plan for 25-26. As members will be aware, the Outer Hebrides Community Planning Partnership is a formal arrangement whereby the Comhairle collaborates with communities and third sector agencies to plan and deliver improved outcomes throughout the Western Isles. The main focus of this current audit was to review progress made to date in the development of the 2027-2037 LOIP. At the time of our review, a reasonable level of assurance could be placed on the control environment put in place to the development of the 2027-23 LOIP. I'm happy to take questions.
Members, any questions? Councillor Gordon-Murray.
Just a comment that I find the OHCPP executive group I don't understand why it exists, to be honest. And I wondered, is there any other community planning partnership that has an executive group? The reason I say that is that many of the officers have to turn up to both these meetings, and some of the reports are reported at both. And looking at officer time can be quite an expense. So just a comment. I know that probably people won't know if other CPPs have an executive group. I just think it's another level, another tier that's maybe not necessary. Thanks.
Okay, thanks for the comments. Thank you. Skinner, you want to? Yes, you want to come in?
Thank you, Chair. No, I don't think I could tell you off the top of my head about other community planning partnerships, but we are in touch with others and we can find out for you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, members agreed no to report then? Sorry, yeah, Councillor Collins.
It's off the group. What is the purpose of it?
Ms. Skinner, can you give a brief overview to Councillor McLean?
Of the community planning partnership or the executive group?
Give it both.
Well, community planning is supposed to be like the overall vision for the Western Isles. It's supposed to be all the different partners coming together to actually look at what could create a cumulative effect of all the work, that if we're all working to the same ultimate goals, then hopefully the outcomes would be greater across the organising across the Western Isles. That's the plan with it. I can't tell you specifics about the exec group. I think it is about, I don't know, maybe the leader can come in on that, but yeah.
Yeah, the leader. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks for the question, I think. No, my understanding when it was first set up, the executive group met more regularly just to monitor all the stuff that was happening to the local outcome improvement plan. So before it reached the board, there were regular updates. There was opportunity to discuss some of the reports and decide what was going to be on the agenda. But obviously the local outcome improvement plan was due to a refresh and it's overdue. So the exec group, as Gordon mentioned, it's meeting and it's considering virtually the same reports. And it's because we're kind of out of that cycle of having an up-to-date local outcome improvement plan. It's a bit of a hangover from when things were active. I want to say thanks to Councillor Muddy because he's obviously got involved in Stornoway West Locality Partnership recently and done a bit of a review of their local plan. Although it is coming to an end, it was actually a useful piece of work to kind of get them kind of back on track. And I think data sets was something that was really important because, and it's mentioned in the report, and as Neil will know, the work that we're looking at just now, it's ensuring we're actually monitoring the things that we're trying to improve and actually being able to access the data that shows us we're improving the things that we're trying to improve. So the executive group was meant to have some oversight of that. And as Gordon pointed out, it's meeting, but it's not necessarily doing what it used to do just because we're out of sync in terms of the review. So, and I've passed it on to Councillor McInnes, so he's now chair of the group, and not just because I've let it get to that stage.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. Thank you. Okay, do members agree to note this report? Sorry.
What value does it add, and therefore to the whole process? Because the groups are disparate, the groups are wherever they are, and then this all comes together. Does it? Maybe this is maybe the Audit and Scrutiny team. Could I say to them that it adds value? Does it add value to the whole operations? That's what I'm. That's what I'm trying.
I think we're straying onto a separate agenda.
Maybe, yeah, but seeing you're doing an oversight of it here, and the question came from the executive group. It seems to me the executive group has no value whatsoever. But I want what the
Mr. Thomas wants to come in. I think
that's good.
Just to clarify.
I'll come in. Maybe not informative. There is a legal obligation for there to be a community planning partnership, and in theory that's to, as alluded to, the synergy that the sum overall framework should work together and resources are done there. You know, the community planning group is distinct from the COLA, so there is a duty on all bodies as part of that partnership to make it to work. In terms of the structure of the executive, I couldn't answer if that's similar or dissimilar to other authorities, but there is a legal obligation. There is a planning partnership. That's about as an overview that I can give.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Okay, Councillor Duncan McInnes.
Just to finalise, you know, Peter is correct there. There's a legal obligation for it, and it's clear that the Scottish Government were seeing that there were weaknesses in some of the partners that were supposed to be providing information into the system. And there is a senior official from Scottish Government in attendance now at most meetings, and they're monitoring it very closely. And as the Chief Executive said, you know, the new charter is being looked at, and part of public sector reform that was discussed at length will be going through the community planning partnership, as will lead on with there's a new Minister for Public Sector Reform, and I'm sure that will be taken forward with a very fast pace in the coming months.
Thank you for that, Councillor McInnes. Thank you. Councillor May, we want to come back in. Finally, just one.
Sorry, Chair, just to go back to Councillor McCrean, you know, in my opinion, I think it's a good group because you're getting all the public sector organisations, especially on in an island environment. There might be shared strategies or shared objectives in the strategies. It's good for information share and collaborative working together. So I think it's very important that it succeeds. In fact, it's so necessary to succeed because there might be huge efficiencies, you know, involved. That's the
Have a cup
my
of tea.
opinion.
Have a cup of tea, the two of you together. And, after. Okay, do members agree to note this report then? Thank you. Moving on to item 16, anti-fraud, corruption and serious organised crime. Again, this report by Chief Internal Auditor provides an overview of the CONUS arrangements for the operational management of fraud and serious organised crime prevention and detection. And again, Mr. Thomas will speak to this report and answer any questions. Mr. Thomas.
Thank you, Chair. So this internal audit was completed a few months back now. The audit opinion is that there is generally a sound system of governance and controls in place within the Comhairle to anti-fraud. 6 recommendations have been made. These are based around raising awareness of the risks of potential fraud against the Comhairle and procedures should to be followed should concerns be raised by employees. I'm happy to take questions, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Members, any questions? No. Okay, members agree to note the report. Thank you. Item 17 is performance management, and that's reports outstanding, and these are for noting. And finally, the next scheduled meeting of the committee will be on 24th September 2026, but we will have a special meeting of audit on the 30th of June to approve the annual accounts. So I'd like to thank you all for your participation today, both members and officers. I think we've had a good discussion on some topics and wish you all the best till we meet again. Thank you very much.